So, how did Trump lose this election? There is a lot of questions as to why it was, a lot of answers, and I'm gonna try to explain as to why I think Trump lost. So, this is kind of like a postmortem of Trump and how he was unable to secure a second term, the first president since 1992 to have that adversity strike him. So, to understand why he lost, we need to get into how he looked like coming into 2020. And coming into 2020, he seemed unstoppable. I mean, a lot of people, this seems like 20 years ago now, but he was impeached by the House and he was acquitted by the Senate. After he was acquitted by the Senate, his approval rating hit all-time highs. And I think you had like a majority of the country for the first time approving of Trump. And he never was able to do that while he was president. And he did it shortly after his acquittal. So at the beginning of the year, Trump was at the strongest. And honestly, any single Democrat would have struggled to beat Trump. And I don't think it would have happened if things had stayed the way they were at the beginning of the year. I think Joe Biden would have lost. I think Bernie Sanders would have lost. I think Bernie would have done better than Biden, but I still think he would have lost. I think any Democrat would have lost against Trump this year because of how good he was doing coming into 2020. But of course, politics is not a stagnant thing. Things change, and all of Trump's success kind of came to a halt when COVID arrived. Now, here's the thing. At first, COVID was not a bad thing for Trump. In fact, it helped him. His approval rating went up after COVID hit, and the reason was because for the first few weeks, Trump actually handled it like a normal person. He didn't he didn't handle it causing any issues. He did the stimulus checks. His approval rating hit massive highs in the first few months of the year because of stuff like that. He was handling it like a leader, or at least giving the illusion. But Trump has a bad attention span, and I think things went kind of wrong when the first sign that Trump was kind of in trouble was the press conference where he basically tried to find the cure to coronavirus and said that this that the cure for the virus was essentially to take in disinfectants, to like inject disinfectants in your arm essentially. And he just seemed like an idiot after that, and he was just mocked after that, and he just stopped coronavirus press briefings. And then after that, for the first few weeks of May, he started to lose favorability on COVID, which is not that good. Also, he was just unable to campaign. So as it was coming along, originally it was a close race. Joe Biden was close to Trump in the polls. Well, he was slightly ahead all the whole time, but you don't really need the popular vote to win. Trump was doing well where he needed to do, and it looked like it was going to be a giant victory. Like, it looked like Trump was going to do well even when COVID first hit. And he was even doing very well in the polls against Biden until he just stopped handling the virus well. And then we headed into May, and it was like the middle, near the end of May, and he just lost favorability on COVID. And it was just not good. And the economy was just getting worse because the stimulus was kind of drying up. And this, however, alone would probably not have been enough to bring down Donald Trump. This just wouldn't, probably. Maybe, maybe not. What happened that really hurt Trump and added to Trump's troubles was George Floyd's death, which caused national unrest, riots, protests that involved looting. I don't know if it helped Trump or not, but it definitely did not look good for his optics, and a lot of middle Americans might have thought that he was not the right president to deal with this, and that hurt Trump mainly because he just became way too antagonistic. He tweeted when the riots were getting really bad in the first few days, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, and threatened to send in the National Guard. Which, for the record, I don't entirely blame Trump for when that happened. That was the governors; they asked for it. So I mean, The Democrat governors wanted it so, but it was not good for Trump's optics the way he handled it. He didn't try to unite it. He he didn't try to unite the country. He just didn't act like he cared for even 3 seconds, and it unfortunately really hurt him because he lost on the issue of race to Biden, which was not good because coming into this election, Trump was actually taking away from Biden among black voters and Hispanic voters, and he did it in this election. He gained among minorities, he gained among non white voters, but he could have done a lot better if this had not happened. And he really just hurt himself a lot in that aspect. And of course, if you lean into culture wars too much, a lot of people just they don't they kind of stop supporting you because most Americans don't care about statues or looting. Well, they care about looting, but they don't care about about handling all these culture war issues like all these social issues like misgendering someone or kneeling at football protests or flag burning, the whole culture war stuff, those whole social issues. Most Americans don't care. They care about, again, their wallets, foreign policy. Um, is America safe? Is the economy going well? And Trump forgot about that because he went way too much into that right wing bubble and abandoned his 2016 populism campaign. And it really hurt him because it clashed um, and it gave Joe Biden the chance to seem a bit more populist than Trump. Now, Biden himself didn't really do that good. He himself seemed not culture war related, but he just seemed like he stood for nothing. So it's not to say that Biden did good. He didn't do all that good this election. His campaign was not good at all. But Donald Trump did worse, and he's the incumbent, so there's a lot more scrutiny on the incumbent, and he just didn't realize that. Or maybe he did and he just didn't care because he thought he was invincible. And then we headed into the first debate, and that was just a horrible performance by Trump. He he set himself on fire in that debate. That was just I don't think there's I think Biden didn't do good at the debate and was kind of bad himself, but Trump definitely did worse. Biden did bad and Trump did terrible, which did not help Trump at all. And then he got COVID, which was just karma. Now, eventually, he did bring COVID press briefings back, but it was August, and I think he only really brought those back to distract from how horribly he was handling the unrest. And his campaign against Joe Biden was just not good at all. He basically tried to, in the middle of a pandemic and an economic unrest, he tried to accuse Biden of wanting to do good things for the country, basically, like give everyone health care or you know, raise wages up, which, by the way, Joe Biden doesn't want to do. Joe Biden is basically a moderate Republican. But, Donald Trump tried to basically say Joe Biden was Bernie Sanders, who would have, in my opinion, been the strongest person against Trump, so, which was a horrible idea. I don't know where he got that idea from. I'm guessing Trump was ready to run against Bernie, and that was what it was. But he should have understood that running against Biden, he couldn't pull that, or else he would lose. And lo and behold, he lost. And towards the end, he got COVID, which was just the ultimate, just like a karma, and it didn't really help him that much. And he looked really bad after getting infected because it just showed how bad he was at handling the virus. And I think at the end, like in the final couple weeks, I think Trump did improve and come back to that 2016 style of campaigning, but it was too little too late. It was too little too late. And his second debate performance, I think he did relatively well. But again, it was just not all that good. It was he chose 3 weeks to go before before he actually tried changing things. And going back to that 2016 style campaign with 3 weeks to go, I mean, it might have helped him a bit. I think it did, but you should have been attacking Biden. I think from the moment Biden won the nomination, Trump should have done what he did in 2016. For one, you sh- Trump should have, I think, immediately, well, for one, handle the virus well. Just do stimulus, do reoccurring checks, which would have done a lot of help. Help out small businesses, make sure people don't go underground. Tell everyone to wear a mask for a few months. have a maybe I wouldn't say a mask mandate, do a mask incentive, print out MAGA masks, stuff like that. Tell all Americans wear a mask, and then boom, this could have probably this virus could have been handled better. I still think it would have been a bad virus and we would have still suffered, but it would have been a lot more managed. It would have been a lot less tumultuous and hellacious for all Americans. And that's number one, what you could have done. Number two, what Trump could have done when Bernie dropped out, Trump should have tried to appeal to his voters because, like in 2016, and probably more so in 2020, Bernie's voters were angry that at how the primary ended, and they were just just beyond angry. And this time, I think it was worse because Bernie was going to win, and then Biden had Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar drop out and endorse Biden, which was essentially a coup, and they stacked up their votes against Bernie's on Super Tuesday. So there was a lot more anger this time, and Trump could have capitalized off of that. Instead, he basically said Joe Biden was Bernie Sanders. Not a good strategy. Um, and he didn't do any like reach out. He abandoned his populism message until the end, just tying Biden. I would have hammered Biden away on his Iraq war vote. I would have hammered him away on his TPP vote. I would have hammered him away on the racist things he's done since he's been a senator since like the 60s. I would have hammered him on on all of that stuff. I would have hammered him on just every single racist thing that he's done because yeah, there's a lot wrong with Joe Biden. His history was really bad. Kamala Harris almost ended his campaign in the primary because of the stuff he's done, and Trump could have hammered that consistently. Called Biden corrupt. He voted for NAFTA, TPP, outsourced jobs. That would have helped Trump in the Midwest, and maybe he wouldn't have lost those Rust Belt states. Um, Reminded people that Obama's recovery was actually not that good, and that 90% of the gains in since that recession went to the 1%, and that Obama was only good for the elites. Trump could have done that. He could have appeared populist at those debates. He could have appeared populist. He could have taken the mantle. He could have made Joe Biden look bad and say, "Hey, under me, I fixed the economy. I grew it." Now, of course, Trump didn't. It was all an illusion as well under Trump. Trump hasn't really been good, but Trump could have said, look, I improved the economy so well before the virus. I'll do it again. Joe Biden won't. He'll make it better for the rich and the stock owners. Take away the populist mantle from Biden, and many Americans will be like, yeah, that Joe Biden guy's corrupt. It needs to stick though. You need a it needs to stick. And Donald Trump just was not able to do in 2020 what he did in 2016 against Hillary. That was a fantastic campaign because he made Hillary look corrupt, and she was corrupt. She's one of the most corrupt politicians ever, and Donald Trump did it perfectly against her. He could have done the same thing against Joe Biden, but he couldn't because for 4 years he's been stuck in a right wing bubble, in a right wing culture war bubble, and it just hurt him in the 2020 election, and he was unable to repeat what he did in 2016 this time. He should have consistently gone hard at Joe Biden for actual stuff he's done that is unpopular. If Trump had gone to the Midwest and reminded people about NAFTA, reminded people about Joe Biden's all the stuff he's done, Joe Biden, how he supports, how his crime bill, all the stuff, all of that stuff. I think Trump could have won this election. I still think Trump could have won. He didn't adjust to the change of dynamics in this race. He didn't adjust to the changing dynamics, and it hurt him. And unfortunately for Trump, it was you can defy gravity. I think there was definitely a swing, a hidden Trump vote that there was in 2016 as well. I think Trump did gain. He got 11 million more votes this time as well. So you can't argue that, oh yeah, Trump is almost defeated, which is a good thing for Republicans. But Donald Trump was just unable to adjust to reality. He was unable to adjust with the situation, and it did not get him a second term. And that is what it is. That's that. Now, I want to just say, and again, I don't want to break any Republican person listen who's watching this video. I don't want to break your heart, right? Um, but before COVID, if COVID never happened, if George Floyd's death never happened, if all the unrest never happened, Donald Trump won this election by a landslide. If all of that had never happened. This was his election coming into it. This was set for Trump until COVID, until the unrest. And Donald Trump was unable to handle the unrest. He was too antagonistic during the unrest. He was too antagonistic during COVID. Well, not antagonistic, he just didn't handle it well. And it came back to bite him in the end. But I also will say Democrats shouldn't feel out of the woods because they did underperform this election. And look, I mean, 2022 and 2024 are not that far away. There's always an election. So this is not the end of Trumpism. This is not. Trump is not going to get a second term. But that does not mean that Trump's ideology is gone. This election was far too close for that, and 74 million people voted for Trump. So the notion that Trumpism is dead this election is bullshit. And don't listen to anyone who tells you that. This is not. And another thing is we didn't win a war this election. We didn't because politics isn't a superhero movie. It's not a superhero movie. There's people who think in some way they're making the world a better place, and I think that we should remember that. But to try to make Republicans hopeful and to make Democrats feel cautious, 2022 looks like a really good year for Republicans. Those midterms, Republicans are probably going to take back the House, which kind of has a Republican skew, and so does the Senate. And I think Republicans are going to take back Congress. And 2024, I mean, it's not that hard to imagine how Joe Biden or Kamala Harris can lose. And of course, Donald Trump is planning to run again in 2024. Will he get back the White House? I don't know. Um, but yes, the Trump presidency is coming to an end. Trumpism is not gone, and the Republican Party is not going back to Mitt Romney, and they really shouldn't because Mitt Romney's type of politics lost them that election. So I guess what I can say regarding Republicans, and I'll discuss it in a future video. Um, don't feel too down, and if you're a Democrat, this you won, but you're not out of the woods yet. There's still multiple elections, and you're going to head into some roadblocks very, very soon. That I think both parties could learn from this election, and we'll get into that eventually. But this is what happened, and that's why Donald Trump will not be president on January 20th afternoon, and any day after that in 2021.